guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a speech therapy update on my son's cleft palate. He was born with a cleft lip and palate. I've been doing blogs about his cleft lip and palate, like from surgeries to just even when I was pregnant. I deleted some of them, but I still want to do updates. People that have watched them still reach out to me, and I think it's really important for us to sort of like form a community and just have someone to talk to that has been through something. And that was my original inspiration to share my journey with my son, because at that time I couldn't really find anybody that was going through what we were about to go through. So it's really important for me to do this and share. So, you know, the speech therapy part of the journey is something that I didn't really think that it was going to be a huge thing, but it has been. So he had surgery at 3 months for his lip, and then the palate was at 11 months. And I know I mentioned this in every video that I do as an update, but just in case for anybody that didn't watch those. So usually they do the palate surgery at 11 months so that there isn't a lot of problem with speech. However, most kids usually still do need some speech therapy. At around 2, I started to look into speech therapy. Initially, it was suggested by the Cleft Lip and Palate team at one of like our yearly visits, but I kind of wanted to wait a little bit and just see if he really was going to need it or if he wasn't. They suggested that he might need it, but I don't know. I just wanted to wait and see him start talking and just take his time. So I remember like my sister, one of my little sisters, she took a while to talk, and it was like, because he wasn't really talking around 2, he was just more like making noises and pointing, if I remember correctly. My sister, she didn't start talking till like after 3, like almost going into 4, and she's never had a problem with speech. It's just she took her time. So I just kind of wanted to wait and see, you know, how he was gonna do. Around 2.5, I decided that he did need to start speech therapy. So I started looking into it with the school system. And it was a super long process. The evaluation, first even just talking to them, I'm sort of trying to remember how it went, how I reached out to them and stuff. I don't remember that part, but I do remember that it was a really long process to even get him into speech therapy, to go in. They did a lot of evaluation, and I think with that first one, they didn't really communicate with the Cleft Lip and Palate team that my son has. They just did their own evaluation, and they took into consideration that he had a palate and cleft palate. So I don't really remember exactly how we got started, but we got started. And there was a therapist that would come out to his daycare, and she would write on a journal everything that they went over, and I guess they would like pull him aside a little bit from class to work on speech. He was so little at that time that I'm not sure how much he got out of it, just because he was little and sort of like, why, you know, like I think he just was confused. He was a little bit more shy and confused on like, why am I being pulled? That's kind of like my perception, but he still, you know, needed to start with speech and stuff. So anyway, it was around 2.5. Once he was 3 years old, he was kicked out of that program because they only have like a up to 3 years old time frame. So once he turned 3, they were going to talk to a different part of the school system, or like a different, I don't know how to explain it, part of the school system that would take over, that starts at 4. So it's like their cutoff was at 3, and then starting 4 you go with like a different like elementary type of like therapist. kind of confused how to explain it. But anyway, they were supposed to reach out to who was going to take over, him being 4 years old now and being kicked out of that program because he turned 4. But they didn't do it. I think something crazy was happening. They were so busy, it was maybe chaotic. I don't really remember because I had to reach out to the school, county, and they were like, well, they were supposed to reach out to us, but they didn't really do it. And I was going through all of this. I don't know how it is in different countries because some people have reached out to me from different countries. But I decided to go through the school system and stuff like that because here speech therapy is extremely expensive, and it's sort of like the same thing. At a few times I did kind of think like maybe we just need to go private, because this is starting to take a really long time and I just kind of wanted it, for him to improve. But I think the decision of not going private was a really, really good one, and I found out later why. So, they take forever. They do all these evaluations, and it's just like a long time. And they have to reach out to the hospital and the Cleft Lip and Palate team, and then they go back and forth with paperwork and all this stuff. Finally, he was about to be finalized and get started with therapy twice a week and months have passed by now at this point, when I moved, and it's a different county, so luckily it wasn't too much trouble. Everything from where I was living, that school county, they just transferred everything since it was very recent to where I am now in the school system, and they sort of just kind of copied and pasted everything that was done at the other one, so I didn't have to go through the whole process again. And so anyway, he gets started. We're going to this elementary school. I take him instead of them coming to daycare. I think there's a private speech therapy group that goes to the daycare. But anyway, he starts going to this school, and I start taking him, and it becomes sort of like a 2-person thing. There's another little boy that needs speech therapy, and they just put him together in a room. And it turned out to be a whole lot better. This other little boy, he was not born with a cleft lip and palate, but he just never really spoke, and only his mom really understands him. I had a lot of really good conversations with his mom, and it felt really nice to be sort of there for a similar reason and just supportive and hearing each other's stories out. And the kids loved it. I know her son improved a whole lot because he normally didn't even want to talk to people because he knew that people wouldn't really understand him. With Jace, my son, it's really most just certain words that he taught himself how to say, and now it's just correcting that and just showing him how to pronounce them differently, which is really hard. You sort of have to rewire the brain because in his mind it's already set one way, so you sort of have to be creative and teach him in a different completely way. So one of the letters is the letter N or the letter S. A lot of the words that my son says are super clear. There's just a few words that have more of a nasally sound, and he doesn't know if they come from, he pronounces them with his nose rather than his mouth, the air pressure is not there. So yeah, as I'm talking, I didn't really have a guideline of how I was going to talk or what I was going to talk about, so I'm just kind of going through the whole thing. But anyway, that was once a week for 30 minutes, and I was talking to the mom, and she actually did private therapy sessions for her son before she went with the school system, and she said that it was just not, like, she stopped that because she said that she felt like she was watching them more like play and like blow bubbles, and you know, this whole like getting there, setting up, you like each session is only 30 minutes and they charge you so much, even with insurance. So the setting up took part of the 30 minutes, and then them like playing and getting, you know, to do the actual session. The session ended up being like around 10 minutes before she had to like pack everything up, and before like the 30 minutes was up. I don't know if every private therapist is like this, but I just kind of had a feeling that that wasn't the route where I wanted to take Jace. So when the summer started, the school system is off for therapy because it's an elementary, so everybody goes away for summer, and then it starts back in the fall. But I was just kind of like, this is not really working out. He was supposed to get it twice a week, but she was so busy with like other sessions that she could only do once a week for Jace, and he improved a little bit, but not really, because like I said, he pronounces a lot of the things really well, but there's just some things that he needs help with, and I felt like she was doing the same thing over and over, like the same technique. Like for example, one of the techniques is to use a straw, and there's different ways you can play with the straw so that the child can hear the sound is stronger if he uses his mouth rather than his nose. So that's the trick that I learned in 10 minutes at the Cleft, Lip, and Palate team. So what I noticed was that he, in like 10 minutes with the speech therapist with his team, that she was specialized in Cleft, Palate speech. He would improve in 10 minutes more than he would in like months otherwise. So it was just something that was like, okay, something needs to be a little bit different here. So I was kind of trying to choose between going private, like with a private, I was about to start actually, I sent them all my paperwork and everything, for the ones that go to his school, or if I wanted to do like a private off clinic related to the speech therapy team. And I don't know why I didn't think about this before, why I went through the whole school system. Like I should have just been like at the hospital where his team is and be like, okay, guide me to one of your coworkers here that specializes with kids that have had a cleft palate, because speech is there's so much. Like most of the therapists that I, in the school system and in private, they don't have experience with kids with a cleft lip and palate. So I think that was kind of where like the concern and him just not improving with that was sort of arising. And yeah, look, like in hindsight, I don't know why I didn't start privately in an off, because I don't know if it's called an off clinic or what is it, on-site clinic. I forget the terminology, but it's basically like at the same place in the hospital, and it's private. Like you go there and you pay privately or separately, the same as you would with any other company. So I was gonna go with this other company for the summer and stuff like that, and then I decided, like I got an inspiration or a hunch to not do that, and especially because one of the girls that was gonna do the evaluation, there was a holiday coming up, and I was talking to her, and she sounded really nice and really friendly. She was gonna come to my home to do the evaluation for Jace. Another evaluation, I know. So she was gonna come, but then a holiday was coming up, and it just turned out that she was sick during, like as the holiday was approaching, and she called me to cancel, and that she was gonna redo it sometime in the following week, and that was it. Like that, I got a text message from her, and she would just let me know when we could resume and reschedule and all this other stuff. So now I was going to be waiting on this girl to call me sometime next week to reschedule, and I was like, no, I am not doing this. Like, I understand if she actually was sick, but at that point I was just like, this is not going to cut it. Like, no. And I called, I think the owner or someone, yeah, it might be the owner, I think, from what it sounded like, and I was just so unhappy. Not only because she called and because she was sick and she was just rescheduling the whole thing, but because it's just like, if that's how I was gonna deal with that therapist the rest of the time, like, I want therapy for my child. Like, it's, you know, I don't want to wait around and see when she has time, or like when she can call me, or when she can fit me in. I need someone. And that's how I was feeling. So anyway, I decided to go with Duke, which is his hospital where his team is, and I went to the speech pathologist person from the team, and I told her, listen, like, I really need somebody, like, I need to go here, like, recommend me of somebody here. Is there a clinic here that can give him speech therapy? And yes, so she did a few tests. There was a test with like an actual computer where he was trying super hard, and she said that, like, in pronouncing these certain letters, like S, like, it's very few specific letters that he pronounces with like with his nose, almost like a nasally sound, and that's what we're trying to correct. So he did this test, and she noticed that he was still having, like, the air pressure, there's still air escaping somewhere on his palate. So she told me that her thoughts that no matter how much therapy he gets, he's still going to pronounce them not 100%, because, and sometimes he pronounces them perfect, but the consistency is not there. I think from like sort of like learning, but like it's not consistent, but sometimes he'll say it. So he can say them, but with the computer that he was like breathing into or talking into, God, was that there's still some air that wasn't like, the pressure wasn't like, this is what I understood. The palate wasn't completely closed during his surgery, basically. There might still be some sort of little gap where the air is escaping, which is why it makes the sound that it makes. So she told me to go to the clinic there with one of her coworkers. It's a very specific speech therapist for what he needs, and I never even knew that existed. I just thought like any speech therapist would help, but then later on, you know, this is why I say, like, I'm so glad that, you know, he did get speech therapy through school, even though, you know, like, it was really crazy and stuff, and not through something private, because at the end of the day, like, we came to this point where he needs a specific therapist to help with those specific needs. And if other therapists don't have that experience and have no idea what they're helping with, there's just no like way of improving. And even with this specific therapist, he might still not improve all the way, and he might need surgery. So she gave me the time frame of now until January 2018 to improve with this specific speech therapist. And if he doesn't, when we come back in January, it's going to be a team meeting, and they're all going to they're going to put some sort of like little camera up his nose, like down his throat, while he's on me, without any sort of like anesthesia or anything, and just have him pronounce words. Like, that sounds super scary to me, let alone like my child. And you know, so the camera is to see if there is a little opening back there or not, because she's not 100%. It's just like what the computer got from the way he was pronouncing the words, and like air was, I guess it measured the air. I'm not sure. Anyway, she's hopeful that he can improve with therapy, but if he doesn't, she said it was most likely he was actually going to need surgery. They were going to have to put that camera there to make sure, and then he was going to do surgery. So when I got told that day, I was so, I mean, I'm pregnant too right now, so I don't know if it was my hormones, but I was just, his next surgery is when he's 7 for a bone graft, and I just thought that, like, he's 4 now, he's soon gonna be 5 in February. So that was so out of my mind, like it's really far away. Like I started to breathe again and just sort of like, okay, we have one more, like, you know, it's down the line. But to be told all of a sudden he might need another one, I'm like, I did not want him to see me cry. When I was driving home, like tears started flowing, and me and my son are so close that he can perceive so much. So I'm just in the front, and he knows I'm sad, and he's like, why are you sad, mommy? And I'm like, you know, being like, I'm not sad, baby, like just talking to him, being as confident as I can about it, because it's not even 100% that he might get surgery. But no mom wants, even though he needs it or may need it, no mom ever wants their child to go through surgery, especially that many times. And I know that Jace hasn't had that many surgeries. I know some, like, other children have a whole lot more with a cleft lip and palate, but still, I don't want another surgery, you know? Like, I don't want him to go through that. And it's just really crazy, like, going back and, like, the smell. I don't know if it's, like, the hand sanitizer or what it is, but it's just it's not, like, a good feeling to be there just from, you know, the journey part of it, like, everything that you go through. I mean, at the end of the day, kids are so resilient. He bounced back so quickly from his first 2 surgeries. You know, all of the positive side that you can see, but I still don't want him to have to go through it, so hopefully this works out. So anyway, then another hoop came where this meeting was in July, and we are now at the end of August. He barely got his first session yesterday. I think yesterday. My days are kind of blurred together, but what happened? Oh, I called, so first they have to see if the insurance goes through to even be able to schedule, like, that it will cover it, if that makes sense. They have to, like, check with the insurance first to see what it will cover or how it will cover it, or that. So before I can even schedule an appointment. So that takes a while. I mean, this started in July, June or July, one of those two. And so it took a little while. I finally got a call back from, I guess, the financial person that everything's good. They told me, like, what it covers, you know, this and that, like, we can move forward. Okay. So now that we got the, like, green light from them, I called back to schedule an appointment, his first appointment, and they told me that she cannot take me at this time because the specific speech therapist that my child needs is all booked up, and she cannot take me. And I was like, what? What do you mean? You know, he needs it. So I was, like, trying to explain to him that if he doesn't improve by January from this therapist, like, is there any other, like, therapist that can do what she does? And he was like, no, she's our only one. The speech therapist that does the evaluation gave the referral for this specific person to do his therapy. So there's nobody else, only her, and she's all booked up. And so he told me that he could put me on a waiting list. So I told him that to go ahead and put me on the waiting list, and I was like, do you have a time frame of the waiting list? Like, how can I just sort of, like, give me something, you know? And he was like, no, we have no idea how long you're gonna be on the waiting list, because she has clients with her, and it's only until she discharges them that an opening is available, and he has no idea when that will be, nor I guess can't really ask the therapist, or I don't really know, but all he could do for me was just put me on a waiting list. So at that point I sort of just like regrouped and was like, okay, like this is not a time to be stressed out and like just worry about it. So what can I do? The only thing that is in my hands at this point is to email the speech therapist that did the evaluation and just ask her, like just let her know what happened, tell her that the referral she did can't take my son, but that my concern was that she only gave me this amount of months before we decide on surgery. So if there was any way she could help me find another speech therapist that does exactly what she does in this area or anywhere, like what, just basically asking her for help, like please help me going forward so that he can get what he needs. And anyway, she said that she was so sweet, and I actually need to send her an email and thank her, because she was like, let me see what I can do, let me talk to my coworkers and I will get back with you. And I was like, okay. And then I just kind of, at this point, I just sort of had to have like faith, just sort of like let it go. This is out of my hands. I have done everything that I can. And that doesn't mean that I don't stop like knocking or searching or asking, because I need to keep, I need to keep moving. But at this point, I'm not in like my vibe is not like anxious, if that makes any sense. So she, a few days later, no, maybe like a week, I don't even remember the time frame, but they called me back and let me know that they called me back to schedule an appointment. And I was like, what? Okay, great. So they give me at 8:30 in the morning, a certain day of the week, and I'm like, okay, like this is the only time frame she can fit me. And they're like, yes, she actually had to put somebody else on hold so that she could take your son, and this is like literally the only time slot available. So I was like, no problem, I will take it, like I will make it work. I had to rearrange my whole schedule with work and talk to daycare and see if he could be, come into after the cutoff and I could go to work after that. Just rearrange like everything around this time slot that's super, super important. So this was yesterday, I think, and he had a really good first session. I mean, they're super strict there, like you have to be here like before the time starts because it's only 30 minutes, but it's critical that like every single minute is used. And I'm like, this is my type of place, exactly. This is what I have been looking for, this is what I have been praying for. Thank you. So anyway, she printed out, we started with the letter S yesterday, and I got a few copies of these cards of these words like skunk, snake, sweater, spider, spaghetti, snowman, swing, star that he started to pronounce. He already improved from yesterday to today. He's so conscious of making that sound, and I will do a separate video on like little techniques and tools that I have learned. It's just very few so far, but that really help a child with a cleft that has had a cleft palate repair, because most of our problem sounds or letters are the same, I think, or very similar. So anyway, like the letter S, instead of adding like an N, because he sort of like adds like an N to it after he says the letter S, which sounds like it's coming from your nose, but he's made such a strong effort to say. Hey guys, I think it got stopped. I'm so sorry. I'm almost done. I actually had to check the time to see if it was time to go to work because I just sort of got lost in this video. But anyway, I was saying that I got kind of like a copy, and I just cut all of these off just because these are the letters that she wanted him to practice. Excuse me. she wanted him to practice, and he's made like such an improvement, but I think it's because of the tool that they were using. And but this video is not like super long, it's just like an update of like how like we started and where we are now. And I'll do a separate one talking about like the things that have helped him improve in a separate video. But anyway, yeah, this is what we're working on right now. I'll keep you posted on his second appointment. Yeah, this was huge. I mean, it wasn't even the full 30 minutes because we went in, we were talking, it was like some sort of paperwork first, and then just like a little bit of time of going over words and stuff like that. And it's just crazy, like when someone's very specific to what the child needs, he improves. But I don't know that if that means that he'll improve enough to not have surgery, or decide that he might need surgery coming January. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope this wasn't super confusing or like long, or I don't even know what it was like, but I think that anybody that's going through it might be able to relate. Please stay in touch or keep me posted about how your little ones are doing, if they're going through a speech therapy journey for a cleft palate. I think, like always, you know, regardless of what we go through, just seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, or just seeing any positive thing that can come out of this, and just pushing forward to that, because we need that as moms to be able to keep going forward and guiding our little ones along, because we are the strong ones. We're the ones, you know, a lot of times they end up leading us, but most of the times we need to be there strong, confident, and hopefully they pick up on that vibe and they are equally as strong and confident and go forward. There was something else that I wanted to mention, just because I was talking to somebody, and I sent her, I don't know if you guys, I think there's like all these groups on Facebook, but there was one where there's like a letter for teachers with a cleft, with somebody, with a child that has had a cleft lip and palate, and it's like a very cool letter, because it just sort of addresses a lot of the concerns that us as moms might have with the teacher. So just having that communication, especially as school starts, you know, because a lot of people don't know or are unaware of what a cleft palate even is. And so having that conversation, having that conference with the teacher to be on the same page since the beginning, and having them help you and have your back in a way where if the teacher if the teacher sees anything, you know, coming from other classmates or anything that is not positive towards the child, to stop that immediately, to teach differences in children. I mean, that starts at home, I think, but it's so important to, you know, also talk to your teachers. When I delivered Jace, the nurses didn't even know, even about the feeding. I was teaching them on how I was feeding my child. So yeah, it's so important for us, I think, as moms, to just, you know, look for more information and see anything that we can do to be that confident role model for our children, and, you know, just keep pushing and moving forward. Yeah, I mean, this is something that I did have a conference with his daycare teachers, and maybe I can talk, if you want me to talk about this in a different video, I can as well. There's just so many topics like related and regarding all of this, but if you want me to do a separate video on what I talked about in the conference with his teachers, I mean, it was related to me thinking of the possibility that some of his friends at school were not as nice, or maybe would start to question, you know, why he pronounces some words the way that he does. I'm so happy that Jace is super, super confident. He's like unaware of it. Like he knows he pronounces things differently, but it doesn't stop him from being a chatterbox and just, you know, being himself. But I don't want anything to get close to touching that. So the only thing that I could think of was to get his teachers on the same page, and yeah, just always making sure that Jace feels loved and protected, and when I'm not there, that he has the confidence to feel like he's strong and confident. What else? So the teacher conference, the letter is really, really cool for the teachers, and even Jace, I teach him differences in other people. A lot of times I talk to him a lot about his heart and things that really, really matter. It's kind of like a weird concept for him, I think, because I teach him a lot about having a good heart. And so he asked me, like, well, what is a bad heart? And just like how everybody can be different on the outside, including like speech or different things, but what really, really matters and what makes a person beautiful on the inside is the heart on the inside, being a good person, being kind, and all that kind of stuff. So at home, this is constantly, you know, I can do a whole nother vlog on that, because there's some things that even I have learned that I was teaching him, then I was like, wait, what am I teaching him? So sort of like regrouped and gave him information sort of like in a different way, if that makes any sense. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon. If you made it until the end, thank you so much, and yeah, don't forget to communicate with me and let me know what you think.